I am your go-to person for this grant program, which is situated in the Office of Farm to Fork at the California Department of Food and Ag. And like I said, today is application office hours, so my objective is try to answer as many questions as I can get to, whether you put it in the chat or whether I meet you after I present for the next 10, 15 minutes or so. If I don't have a chance to get to everyone's questions or you have to leave early or what have you, just shoot me an email. Our email address is on the slide there. It is me on the other end. So just send it in to me and I'll get back to you ASAP. Catherine can attest. I just responded to her today. Yeah, so let's get started. In case anyone's wondering, yes, we're recording this, and yes, we will post it on our website in a few days. So for the next 10, 12, 15 minutes or so, I'm going to go over some things just so that we're all on the same page on some of the basics about the program. February 19th, last week, we did the deep dive information session, which is not exactly what we're doing today. Really today is let's make sure we're all on the same page about the basics and then really get to your questions. But so I'll go over what support we're offering applicants, the purpose of the program, who's eligible to apply, and then we'll look at the website together just so we all know where all these documents are and all the things that I mentioned are located. And then, like I said, I'll try to respond to as many questions as possible today, but I can't really respond or give you specific advice on how to do a project. So if you're saying, hey, does this or does this sound better? I'm honestly just not the best person to answer that for you because you know your communities and your capacity and your projects best. But if you have questions about the grant program, rules, guidelines, grant regulations, things like that, how we'll score applications, I can answer those really, really well. Right. So we have a bunch of layers of support for our applicants right now, and a lot of folks have been using it already, which is great. Love it. So you can always send me an email. That's our email inbox there. And then we have FAQs on the website, and I'm updating those regularly. Just updated them yesterday too, so there's a lot of great questions on there already. And then we have our office hours on Zoom, which you're at the very first one right now. So welcome. But you can come to more of them if you want. You can come to all of them. We'd love to see you there. And then the last layer of support we have is for particular applicants. So I will be reviewing draft application materials for up to 20 lead applicants that are either Native American tribes, tribal-led nonprofits, or California food producer organizations that are majority owned by socially disadvantaged, beginning, limited resource, veteran, or disabled food producers. So if that sounds like you and you want to set up a one-on-one meeting with me, you can do that. You can go on our online form. The QR code is on the slide there, or you can give me a call on my cell and we can find a date that works. And this is me meeting with you to go over what you've developed already at whatever stage. It doesn't need to be perfect. And I'll give you feedback on how you can improve your app before you submit it to CDFA for formal review. So if you do participate in that, it does not mean I will write anything. I won't generate a budget for you. I won't do research for you. It means I'll look at what you've got going. We can talk about it and I'll give you feedback based on the scoring criteria and priorities for the program, how you could improve your app. And if we do have those meetings, it's important for me to emphasize that it will not at all guarantee that you will be selected for a grant award because this is a competitive grant program and I won't even be scoring your application. And if anyone does need a language interpreter for these kinds of meetings with me, that online form is in English and in Spanish, so folks can request an interpreter to join our meeting as well. All right, so other resources we have on our website right now for everyone. So I mentioned we had our deep dive information session last week. So that recording and that slide deck is on our website right now. I encourage you to check that out. And then the request for application, the RFA, that's the 30+ page document on our website that probably it seems daunting, but it's a great resource because it has all the guidelines and rules and regulations about the program. So maybe, Control F if you're looking for something specifically, it's probably in there. And in that document on page 3, I put in there tips for applicants, and especially if this is your first or maybe second time applying for a state grant, hopefully that could be useful for you too. And then on our website, we also have an application submission checklist. So that's really just a tool for applicants to quickly see, okay, I want to apply for track 1 planning. Here are the materials I need to submit. I want to apply to track 2 infrastructure and operations. Here are the materials I need to submit, because I know it can be a lot of documents and words and everything. So that's a tool for you to just quickly see what you need to submit for which funding track. All right. Gonna go over the purpose of the program so we're all on the same page. If you've listened to me talk before, you know I say this is the North Star of the program, meaning that in one way or another, projects selected for award should help feed into and help achieve these goals for our food system communities in California. So, the purpose of the grant program is to incentivize the creation and permanency of public serving aggregation and distribution enterprises by investing in planning activities and piloting investments in the capital aggregation and distribution infrastructure that's needed to increase purchasing of local, environmentally sustainable, climate smart, and equitably produced food by schools and other institutions, to build a better food system economy, to support the local farming and indigenous food production economies, to accelerate climate adaptation and resilience, and to employ food system workers with fair wages and working conditions. So I want to emphasize that first bullet point too, because I get a lot of questions and emails about if projects could qualify if they're donating food or if they're primarily or only selling or distributing food directly to individuals? And the answer is no, because one of the purposes, as stated in that first bullet point, is to help increase purchasing of food by schools and other institutions. So looking for primarily institutional sales. And we'll get into that more. All right. And then a community food hub is defined in the RFA as an organization or business that serves as a supply chain intermediary by purchasing food products from and providing aggregation, distribution, or marketing services for multiple local or regional California food producers, especially those using sustainable or climate smart ag practices and following state labor practices. The Community Food Hub is providing these services to strengthen the ability of its food producer communities to reach sales markets with wholesale, retail, or institutional buyers, and identifies the source of 100% of the food products that it sells. So again, I got a lot of questions saying, do we count as a food hub? We don't call ourselves that. It's fine if you don't call yourself one, but if your organization aligns with this definition, then yeah, you likely count and qualify as a food hub for this program. All right, so jumping into a little bit about who is eligible to apply, I'm going to break this into a couple parts. So most types of entities are allowed to apply as long as they're developing a new community food hub or expanding the capacity of a developed community food hub. And what we mean by that is a new community food hub is one that has either never conducted community food hub operations or has been conducting operations and had an average annual gross income of $1 million or less the last 3 years. By contrast, a developed community food hub is one that had an average annual gross income between $1.1 million and $5 million the last 3 years. So specifically, the legal entities that are allowed to apply are on the screen here. So those that are allowed to apply are under the green check mark. I won't read them all, but I will read the ones that are not eligible to apply are individuals, private schools, other local, state, and federal entities, and then food hubs, aggregators, and distributors that do not meet the definitions of new community food hub or developed community food hub. And because of how we've defined those terms, that would mean if you are a food hub with an average annual gross income greater than 5 million during the last 3 years, you are not eligible to apply to the program. All right. And then Simple question. How do we apply? So you email all your completed application materials into us, attach them to a single email if possible, and they are due 5 p.m. on Monday, April 14th. You can find all the application materials on our website, and my hot tip is to use that application submission checklist because, especially I would say for track 2, there's a lot of materials, and so it's just a quick reference of what you need to submit, and is it in Excel, is it a PDF, is it a Word? It has it all right there for you, that checklist. So with that, I'm gonna look or review the website with you all, again, just so we all know where these things are located. So, okay, you can see the screen. Great. So when you go to our website, this is what you'll see. Quick overview of the program, the purpose. The side here is reminding you when the application is due. And when you scroll down here, shows you how to apply. And here is the RFA, the document with all the requirements and guidelines for the grant program. Here's that application submission checklist, that hot tip, your guide there. And if you want to apply for track 1 planning, here are all the application materials on this drop-down menu here. This review criterion scoring doc is a really great resource. It's going to outline exactly how each application material and question will be scored by reviewers. So if you draft something for yourself, you can use that to score yourself, ask your friend to do it, and just see, you know, my 90% or higher, things like that. Scrolling down, if you're applying to track 2 for infrastructure and operations, drop-down menu here has all the application materials. Just like track 1, the application review criteria and scoring document is there, detailing how every single question will be scored by our reviewers. And then you scroll down here, here's all the application assistance. So here are the FAQs I mentioned, which are going to be continually updated. Here's the application information session, slide deck, and recording. That's the deep dive that we did last week. And then here are all the application office hours. So we're here today, but you can sign up for all of them if you want. Love to see you there. And then here is where you can request one-on-one meetings with me if you qualify for a meeting to go over your draft application materials. So this will remind you who can request the assistance and then how. So this is the online form, and that's my cell. And then the hot tip here is, even if you qualify and you're interested in this and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready to talk about this next week, that's fine. Just put a date on the calendar in March. If you feel like you'll be ready at that point. If you're like me, putting that date on the calendar is a great way to hold myself accountable and kind of like work towards the date and chip away at it. So that's the website. And that's it, me talking. So really trying to reserve the rest of today to answer your questions. Feel free to put them in the chat. And then if you want to speak, you can use the raise your hand feature on Zoom and I'll unmute you. If you do speak, I just ask you to speak 2 minutes or less, just so we have time to get to everyone. And I'll try to bounce back and forth between raised hands and chat, because I find sometimes it doesn't feel fair, like I'm the first one in the chat, but then everyone raising their hand gets to speak first. So we'll bounce back and forth. All right, so I see the question already in chat. Roger, will you be able to send us the link to apply? Yeah, so I will drop a link to our website. All right, our website link is in the chat now. And the way you apply is by emailing all the application materials into us. Great question. All right, Brenna, asking you to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. So based on your little intro, and apologies, I just discovered this grant today. So I did read through it as much as I could, but I'm still kind of like soaking in the information. So forgive my ignorance, but I'm not sure if the project that I'm a part of actually meets the requirements for being defined as a food hub. And additionally, the food pantries that we operate, there's no sales of food. It's all free, and the goal is to put these free pantries at existing nonprofits, and schools and other types of like public spaces, so that anyone can receive the food. And we're working to build partnerships with farmers to like receive, if they ever have surplus or misfit produce or what have you. So you're already familiar with the Frege concept, so it's kind of like, minimizing food waste and giving, that food to anyone who might need it. So based on that, I'm not sure if we actually qualify because we're not a farmer, producer, or seller to like a public school, for example. So that's kind of like my question is like, should I just like leave it there, or should I figure out a way to like work ourselves into this? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Brenna. And you're not the only one that asks it. So I'm glad you're raising it because other folks might have the same question here today. So based on what you've described, what I understand it to be, it would not qualify for this program because one thing, as you mentioned, donations are not allowed. That's a CDFA grant regulation that applies to all programs, actually. So grant funds cannot be used for anything associated with donations, including food. And then the other piece is that this program, one of the goals is to help increase purchasing of local food by institutions, especially public institutions and nonprofits, and then again, especially public schools, food banks, and nonprofits selling to low-income communities. So direct to consumer sales, if you were to conduct sales, so like selling food to an individual or handing them out at events or like selling it at a farmer's market directly into individuals and families is not allowed for this program. We're looking for food hubs that are typically the typical model. They're purchasing food from their local food producers, farmers, ranchers, what have you, and then they might be repackaging that food if needed. Sometimes they're handling directly the aggregation and distribution to sell it then on the other end to public school districts, health clinics, food banks, other nonprofits. Yeah, and in terms of at the end there, you're saying, should we try to fit ourselves into it? That's up to you all. I would think, staying true to your mission and your goals as an organization would be, the most important, instead of trying to, you know, fit yourselves into this. Yeah,
Yeah, I
great question.
understand. Thank you so much. And one last question is, do you have any recommendations for me? And also Irene, I noticed in the chat said, hey, I'm in a similar situation. Do you have any recommendations for where we might look to seek funding? Or I don't know if you can even respond to that, or if you have the lowdown on any information.
Yeah, I can definitely respond to that. You can send me an email too, because then I can send you links a little bit easier, just because I want to get to folks' questions now too. But yeah, send me email too. But yeah, a lot of folks have been asking me that. And I mean, there's a lot more local funding out there that I wouldn't be aware of, because I'm more statewide. But right now, I'm not aware of any programs that are currently open. But I believe there might be some programs opening up later in the year from the state that could possibly fit what you're looking for. It depends on the details always. But for state grants anyway, there's a California, I can drop this link in the chat, a California grants portal. Anyone that's not familiar, it has every single grant program in the state, or it should. We're required to upload them here, and I find it pretty user friendly. I just put it in the chat. You can filter it based on your entity type, the category, and the time frame, and sometimes it'll show forecasted grants too. So I would recommend that for sure. You're so welcome, Irene. All right, let me look in the chat. Oh, great question, Catherine. Is this funding susceptible to cuts from the federal government, even though it is from the CDFA? No, it is not. We do not receive any federal funds for this grant program. Some CDFA grants are what they call federal pass-through, meaning it's like sometimes it's part state money, part federal money, but that's not the case for this one. So we're not susceptible to federal freezes or cuts. Great question. Quick one for Mitch. Will you be sending the presentation? So today, yeah, we're recording this right now, and the recording will be on our website in a few days. I will say that you could check out our website right now. The slide deck, here, I'll just link directly to the slide deck from our information session last week, has a lot more details than I went over the first few minutes of today. All right, Willow, we will ask you to unmute.
Thanks. Hi. Thank you for doing this. Nice to see you all of us colleagues in this work. Okay, so my question is about what qualifies as an institution in the category of schools. So I think that I heard you say that private schools or independent, private schools are not allowed. Is that correct?
Private schools are not allowed to apply.
But if we were applying to serve those schools, that would be allowed?
It's a good question. So, you mean as a buyer, right, Willow?
Well, yeah, we want to aggregate produce and serve private and charter and public schools with like CSA distribution for families at the schools, like
Got it.
aggregated distribution
Got
at the
it.
schools.
Yeah, so okay, I'll address kind of two things I heard there. So the program is looking for projects that are prioritizing sales to public institutions and nonprofits, especially public schools, food banks, and nonprofits serving low-income communities. That's the priority, and that's what we'll be looking for. And if you look at the application questions, which you might have already, you can kind of see that throughout, right? Like, how are you prioritizing sales to these groups? But projects can sell to private institutions, which could include private schools, and it could include for-profit grocery retail, private universities, places like that, because we know, there's a lot of food hubs have diversified markets, and that's typically a strong business practice. So it's not that those would not be allowed, but because of the legislation for the program, we need to be prioritizing projects that are serving those public institutions and nonprofits. So if you're, for instance, if you're interested in the Track 2 infrastructure and operations grant, which is kind of like the implementation grant, the letter of support forms that you need to submit from buyers. Those buyers have to either be a public institution or a nonprofit who's interested in purchasing food from the food hub. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing I heard you mention is that you're interested in putting together CSA boxes for the families at the schools. What we're looking for essentially is that the nonprofit or the public institution buyer is the one paying the invoice. If an individual is paying the invoice, that would be considered direct-to-consumer food distribution, which is not allowed for the program with some exceptions. And I'm happy to talk about those exceptions for anyone that's interested in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I guess my follow-on question is, you're saying that a for-profit grocery or a food seller is allowed, just not direct to consumer. And then like, would charter schools be allowed as a public school, or is it only public schools?
In the RFA, one of the definitions for public institutions lists all the groups that count as a public institution for this program, and we say public school districts. But I can circle back about the charter schools. And if you want to send me an email about that, that'll help remind me too, but I'm writing it down too.
Okay, that's awesome. And I'll just say, just so you understand a little bit more about why I'm asking these weird questions.
Yeah.
We're wanting to apply for a planning grant for a biodynamic produce food hub. So that's a growing practice that represented within food hubs currently. And so it's kind of specific, but we're looking to go to food markets or grocery stores, and also to schools, but it would probably be a mix of public and independent, private, and charter schools. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, of course. Great questions. Thanks, Willow. Yeah, I'll say then, because we're on the topic, share my screen for that kind of mixed market. Is this the right one? This is the right screen. Because I imagine a lot of folks are doing mixed markets, which is great. So this is the Track 2 review criteria document that I mentioned earlier. It tells you how every single question will be scored. So in the buyer and sales section for the Track 2 application, there's this question that's asking you to estimate what percentage of sales will be in the following types of buyers: public schools, food banks, etc. So this question is not scored, shows you right here 0 points, but we're looking to see that, as it says here, if private institutions, a retail storefront, or other, right here, has higher percentages than the other categories, we would flag that as an additional review. Because again, we're trying to see that you're trying to prioritize sales to those public institutions, food banks, schools, and other nonprofits for the program. Yeah, so just as an example of how we're looking to evaluate things. Great questions. I'm gonna go in the chat again. So Susie, earlier you said, sounds like you need to sell to a school to be eligible, or you can't apply. No, you don't have to sell to a school or a school district. That's one of the emphasis for the programs. But it doesn't have to be a school. It could be nonprofits, food banks, or other nonprofits serving low-income communities. Maybe it's health clinics, things like that too. Great question. Irene, making sure we didn't skip your question. I found this grant recently and I was wondering if, as a sole proprietor individual, if I would be eligible to apply and sell our produce to our community. Is there a separate grant that allows for this? Okay, I think we might have addressed that with Brenna's question. Sole proprietors can apply, individuals cannot. We discussed direct to consumer food distribution earlier. That's generally not allowed for the program. Okay, Shayna's trying to collaborate. Awesome, love that. Okay, cool. All right, Donatella, asking you to unmute.
Hi, thank you for the time to discuss this. I'm actually from a public institution, San Diego State University. And my question is, we have Santa Margarita Ecological Station in which we start to establish some plantations, avocados and oranges. And I would like, but there has not been the link yet between our ecological station and other research station and the university providing the food. It's like buying the food from yourself, but I'm trying to make that link and I still need to elaborate more the details, but I would like to know exactly what's eligible if a project of the university links with the researchers and other farmers that help us with the practice of our field stations, and to embed this the food produced in this station inside the university operation. And what's the ultimate goal of this food hub? The university is going to use it for the restaurants, for events, for public events, for for whatever things are doing, raising funds for also for funding for all sorts of stuff. But I wanted to know a little bit more of what's eligible for us.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, so based on what I'm understanding, you're wondering if this funding could help create that link between the university's production farm, which happens to be at one of the experimental stations, and the university's food service on campus, it sounds like. So that would not qualify because I will share my screen. Mainly because it doesn't sound like it aligns with the definition of community food hub. Where thing I'll highlight here is purchasing products from multiple California food producers, so not just a single farm. And in the track 2 application, for instance, which is the implementation funds to cover infrastructure and operational costs, we're looking for letters of support from 2 buyers that are either public institutions or nonprofits. So one of the logics around community food hubs in California and across the whole country really is they've popped up to help usually smaller growers, local growers, BIPOC growers, socially disadvantaged growers who might not often have an easy time accessing markets. They're trying to be that in-between person to help them access sales markets that they haven't really had ability to access before. So that's one of the prompts for this program as well. Yeah, so we've had some folks asking like, oh, well, our school operates a farm, can we source from that and serve our students? And it's like, not really, because the one of the objectives of a food hub is to try to serve a community of food producers, farmers, ranchers, or maybe there's tribes using traditional food production practices as well. Yeah, great question. Susie, I ask you to unmute.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. So I'm thinking we are not eligible, but I want to clarify. Okay, so we run 2 mobile farmers markets. We go to 10 locations throughout Yolo County, and we go into low-income neighborhoods. So we're definitely meeting that piece. We're definitely going to a critical population that is maybe lacking services or access to easy access to fresh, healthy food. And we do source from urban farms, other local farms, but it is more direct to retail. I mean, we call our little warehouse a hub, but we are then just selling it out of the mobile market. We're a nonprofit, so we have that piece. So I feel like and we do buy from a food hub. So we buy from a food hub, we source from local farms, urban farms, and then we put it on the truck and we sell it. So are we eligible?
Great question, Susie. I live in Davis, so I think I'm pretty familiar with the program you're talking about. It was Sarah Bernal.
Yeah, I'm her predecessor.
Okay,
her successor. She's my predecessor. I'm her successor. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to work together on the Urban Ag program. Great. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, so from what I understand is you all then sell directly to folks who walk up to the mobile market and purchase the fruits or veggies, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would not be allowed. Most direct to consumer distribution wouldn't be allowed under this program. I mentioned there's some exceptions, and really it's where if there's a nonprofit or public institution that's paying the invoice. So I'll give an example. The one that's common is the Medi-Cal CalAIM program, which if folks aren't familiar is where health plans or healthcare providers pay, let's say in this case, a food hub to drop off medically tailored meals to somebody's home. So yes, you're directly delivering food to someone's home, but this healthcare plan or healthcare provider is paying you to do that. So that would be allowed. in this program. So if there are other cases like that, it'd be allowed.
Like a
But
produce
for-
prescription program kind of?
yeah, sometimes hospitals have that or nonprofits have
But we'd
those
have to be
programs too.
aligned with the hospital to do that.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. The Medi-Cal CalAIM program is kind of its own
Okay, its own
world.
thing. Got it.
Yeah,
Right, right.
its own world. I've heard of other hospitals or health clinics have then their own like independent program too, which is out there. But the Medi-Cal CalAIM is its own kind of universe. But that's just an example where like yes, you're directly delivering it to the consumer, but they're not directly paying the food hub to do that. Their healthcare provider is paying it.
Right, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but what you're describing where folks come up to purchase, yeah, that wouldn't be allowed for this
So the only
program.
other way would probably maybe be a planning grant where we wanted to expand our aggregation of urban farms per se, and then get that to schools or other institutions and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up because some folks I know have been doing a lot of direct to consumer work, which obviously has huge value. And they hear from maybe their farmers that they're trying to access those markets. And so they might, like you said, they might go for a planning grant then of like, well, how could I scale up or
Right.
expand, right, to support my
Yeah.
farmers and my communities. Yeah.
I was looking through the packet, this is my last comment, the judging criteria, where is that? The screenshot you had a second ago. I don't see
Yeah.
that in this long 32-page document. Or maybe I'm missing it.
No, you're not. Yes, I'll drop in both. for
Okay,
track
great.
One and for track two into the chat.
Great, great, cool. All right, I'll take myself offline. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. Okay, there's the track one. Okay, and there's track two. Yeah, so those documents, details on how everything will be scored, and those are on the website when you scroll down and you look under the application materials. Okay, Alex, ask you to unmute.
Yes, I'm sorry if you already answered these. I got ADHD, so it's hard for me to, keep along. But I have a nonprofit in Fresno. We have a private piece of land. Everything kind of burned down, so now it's just a lot. If I wanted to bring a farmer's market to the east side, would that qualify us for one or two?
And would this be kind of like a traditional farmers market where folks come up to the stands and buy their fruits and veggies,
Yes.
that kind of thing? Yeah, that would not be allowed. So most what we call like direct to consumer food distribution, which is what you're describing, would not be allowed for this program because one of the goals is to help increase purchasing of local food by institutions. So typically kind of like larger buyers. So like school districts, public school districts, or health clinics, food banks, and other nonprofits that are serving low income communities. Yeah.
Okay, so like basically we would be like a middle person between the farms and the big producers. So that's
Exactly.
kind of, okay, so, because we have a restaurant and we also have relations with everybody, in the Central Valley. On top of that, we're also, facilitating, TEK, which is traditional ecological knowledge. And so we have access to a whole bunch of foods like acorns and, bay nuts. So if we wanted to get those into the school systems, you would be able to help, implement or help us create something to implement, that type of infrastructure
Yeah. So if
for
you were
traditional food.
ready, so traditional food would be allowed. Yeah, and if you're ready to implement that, like startup operations as soon as you get the funding, then the track two, infrastructure and operations, would be the best funding track for that. If you feel like you're still not quite ready, maybe you need to do more outreach, maybe you need to figure out, I don't know, the operations of it or food safety, or maybe you need a time to build relationships with buyers, then maybe the track one planning one is the better funding track.
Okay,
So it
so
just kind of
then,
depends where you're at and your goals. Yeah.
I have your information that you sent earlier. I took a screenshot of it. Because there's a couple other partners that I have and that might be able to, because for me, like I'm the director of the nonprofit and I also have a kitchen back here. So kind of like what I do is I'm the chef, but at the same time, we have other people that might best fit, the production part of it. We have somebody who's a practitioner who gathers all the acorns, who gathers all the wild foods. And then we have somebody who wants to, put it on the market, as far as like Blue Diamond, and not like I forgot the other place that he said. So if I were to, send you an email with the other people that we got working, then this is how, you could let them know how to do it, because I feel like we are pretty, far along the line of like where to start, because at California Open Lands, I work with Food Fiber Medicine. So we work with all the tribes in California. And that's kind of like where we want to start, giving the products to. Um, I guess the question is, if I were to email you, you'd be able to kind of like help them figure out what they're going to apply for and when we need to apply for it.
Yeah, I could give them guidance on which track might fit what they're looking for. I mean, it's always helpful just to have a quick phone call or something about it too.
And your number was on there as well, the
Yeah.
screenshot. Okay.
Yeah, you can give me a call and we'll just, I find like a 5-minute chat is often better than like
Yeah, me too. I
5
hate,
back
I
and
hate
forth
writing emails.
emails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So yeah, you guys can give
Awesome.
me a call and we can figure it out.
This is really good news. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna look in the chat. Shayna, sorry. I own 2 entities. Can both of my entities apply separately for track 1 planning and track 2 infrastructure? For example, the planning project will be used to advise the infrastructure project. Great question. Thank you for asking that. No, you should apply for one track for one project. Scott, period for grant track 2 is 5 years. What if current lease is only 2 or 3 years? How will that affect scoring? That's a good question, Scott. So what Scott's saying is that the grant term for track 2 infrastructure and operations, the implementation grant, is 60 months or 5 years. And so what if the current lease is only 2 or 3 years long? Well, I would say or wonder, would you use some of the funds to cover your lease for the other years if that's possible? But maybe that you don't know, you can't predict what your landlord will say, but it won't affect scoring. We don't ask or score that kind of information. But if the project is selected for award, we can talk about details and work through any challenges that might come up. That's a great question. Mitch, we are a tech platform just for the F&B industry, from farmers to servers, akin to LinkedIn Plus Jobs. Our roadmap includes B2B capabilities. This grant could help speed that up so farmers can expand their sales to new entities to sell all product at its freshest. Buyers would be a variety of entities. We are the technological conduit for that. Should we pursue a grant to make that happen? It's a great question, Mitch. So I would ask who your buyers are, because one of the priorities for this program is looking for projects that are prioritizing sales to public institutions and nonprofits, especially public schools, food banks, and nonprofits serving low-income communities. You could still sell to private entities, restaurants, for-profit grocery retail, private schools, because we understand folks have diversified markets and that's usually a good business practice. But we are looking for that priority on how you're trying to serve public institutions and nonprofits. In terms of like the model you're describing of being that technological conduit, that's fine. There's some food hub models out there where they are virtually coordinating the activities and they don't ever directly handle or aggregate the food, but they're still working with their food producer communities to figure out what they have ready for sale and working with the buyers on the other side to see what they're interested in. And like you said, being that conduit of for the in-between, the intermediary. Great question. Okay, Susie. You know what? I will go to Roger first, just because to spread the love, and then we'll go to Willow.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, and probably can see me. Yes, I know earlier you were stating I'm in the same kind of situation, not same situation, but I also live in the valley along with Alex here in Fresno, and we have an organization that calls Building Youth Tomorrow Today, and what we do, we grow watermelons, and our thing is we work out of one of our farmers is called Fields. Fields, Chris Fields is his name, and we work out of his. Our youth work out of his. We lease his some of his property to grow. Now, when we grow these, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. Do we sell to the schools? Do we sell this, or do we give it to the schools when we grow these things? So that's what I was kind of confused on. Do we give it to the schools or do we sell it to the school with an invoice?
Yeah, great question. Well, first I would just, so are you describing just your farm would sell or give food to the schools, or would you be aggregating, purchasing food from other farmers as well and acting as a hub?
We'll be usually acting as a hub because when we, when we grow it, we just teaching a few of the students how to grow and prepare. Not only just hands-on, but sales and marketing, and always to higher education, because we have a lot of kids that got full ride scholarships by going through our program. And so we were just trying to continue this so we can keep it sustainable. And that's why the main question is, do we or can we sell it to the school so we can continue to keep it sustainable? Or do we have to give it to the school or the community bank, food bank that we work with also?
Right. Yeah, thanks
So,
for that. Yeah, so the idea is community food hubs would have to sell their food to whoever the buyers might be, school district, food bank, and others. You're not allowed to donate food as part of the program.
okay.
And but I just want to be clear that you wouldn't qualify as a community food hub per our program's definition unless you were purchasing food from multiple farmers, not only your farm.
Okay,
So
this is be our farm then. So would that basically qualify if we just from our own farm?
if it's from your own farm, no. No.
Okay.
If it's only your farm, it could be your farm could be part of it, but you'd have to also be purchasing and coordinating with other farmers in the area too.
Yeah, which we do. I mean, we also work with other organizations like the African American Farmers of California. We work with them a lot,
Okay.
and ABRIC too, Asian
Oh, okay.
Business Center.
Yeah.
So we work with them.
But would you be purchasing food from them as well to then
No, we'll
sell
be
to?
growing. We just will be growing a lot of things too. And it's like if we growing this, what do we do? I mean, my saying is like to qualify. Can we, when we grow it, can we sell it to who? To like the schools, or can we do that?
Yeah, definitely the expectation is you would sell your products to the schools and other buyers, but to qualify as a community food hub, you'd have to be purchasing food from other growers as well.
Oh,
So
okay. So we have to purchase the
yeah,
food
kind of
from other people.
like a distributor. Like sometimes people will call food hubs like values-based distributors. So yeah, so they're purchasing food from other farmers, sometimes, from all different types of growers, sometimes ranchers if they're selling meat or folks growing eggs, whatever. They have a variety of products and they're selling all those products to schools, food banks, and whoever else they're trying to sell to in the community.
Okay, we just wanted to make sure we got it right. So, because we've been doing it for a while, so we just want to. This will be our first time, so we're trying to see where do we qualify at,
Yeah,
for the food
yeah.
hub. So, yes, yeah. So, because we definitely want to do it.
Cool. Well, yeah, as long as you're purchasing food from other farmers too, as well as your own farm,
Uh-huh.
not only your farm, then you would qualify. Yeah.
Okay,
So
because we do,
maybe,
because
yeah.
we do have some, I mean, we do purchase, I mean, well, it's just not, we purchase like eggs and stuff like that from other farmers too. So I don't know if that's
Yeah,
considered.
yeah. If you're like aggregating, gathering food from multiple farmers to then sell that to the schools, food banks, whoever, then that would be a food hub.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
And if you have more questions to follow up later, you can always shoot me an email.
okay. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks for
Okay.
joining us.
Oh, yes.
All right, Willow, I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Okay. I'm sorry if it might be in the materials, but so what percentage of sales need to be to disadvantaged communities to even be considered? Because we're working with farmers who are kind of disadvantaged. So it makes it difficult to think, oh, we need to be like, I just feel like just trying to get the food from disadvantaged farmers to a good market is more the way we've been thinking, but I understand if that's not the way that this program works. So I'm kind of trying to understand what percentage would need to go to disadvantaged, and then how is that determined? Like, if it's to a school, how do you determine whether that is a disadvantaged community or not? And then my second question is, in the planning grant, is there staff time, is staff time covered or allowable for the planning? And then what type of infrastructure do you have to have food hub? Do you need to have a track where you're planning to create your own warehouse and create your own things like that? Or if you wanted to with another organization that already has that infrastructure, would it be allowed to create a partnership?
These are such great questions. Thank you, Willow. So I'll tackle the first one first, where you asked what percentage needs to be sold to socially disadvantaged communities. How would we even determine that? So there is no requirement that you sell food to socially disadvantaged communities at all. And you're certainly not scored on what percentage that would be. We're looking for if you're selling to public schools, to public institutions and nonprofits, and then the emphasis being public schools, food banks, and nonprofits serving low-income communities. So it's not on the food hub to figure out where is that socially disadvantaged community, and figuring out the details of that. It's really just trying to see what your buyer relationships are and if those are aligned with public institutions and nonprofits that I mentioned. What food hubs would be scored on in the application is how many socially disadvantaged food producers you're working with, how many limited resource food producers you're working with, disabled, veteran, cooperatively owned, and those operating on 500 acres or less. And you'd be scored based on that percentage in your network list for track 2. But for track 1, planning, yes, staff wages and fringe benefits are covered by the grant. Those are allowable costs. And then you had a third question that I'm blanking on now. Do you mind reminding me, Willow? I think you're still unmuted.
Oh,
Oh, here, let me unmute you.
thank you. Sorry, I'm awkward with the technology. So my other question was about partnering with an existing food hub. Basically, we're interested in creating a market for farmers who are growing using particular growing methods who don't currently have a market. And we would like to work with another existing food hub to create a new line or a new marketing endeavor for specifically biodynamically grown produce. And so I'm wondering if we can partner with, say, feed cooperative or an existing food hub that I'm sure their revenue is over, I think you said 5 million, but I'm sure it's over that.
Yeah, so you could definitely partner with whoever you want as part of your project, but we're looking for planning grants that help plan for a new community food hub on its own right. So yeah, I can't speak for Feed or other food hubs that you might reach out to, and I'm not sure what area you're operating in either, but yeah, I could see a scenario where someone partners with an existing food hub to collaborate on a new plan, maybe in a different region, to set up a food hub. But if you're planning to see how can we get more of our biodynamic farmers into, let's say, Feed's operation, we would need Feed to be the lead applicant in that sense. Because it's an existing food hub, and you're just looking to how to expand their markets, or their suppliers rather. But yeah, does that make sense? I don't know if I'm being clear on that.
Yes, it does. It does make sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, in the chat, I saw something. Let me move up. Okay, Shayna, will this grant be available again? How much longer do you anticipate this opportunity being available? That's a great question. As of right now, this is one-time funding for the program from California's general fund. So as of right now, we do not think there will be another grant cycle. That could change in budget years in the future. Can my nonprofit be a collaborator or partner with a Track 1 grantee if awarded a Track 2 grant? Yeah, great question. So yeah, let's say you apply for Track 2 as a lead applicant, because you're gonna implement or expand food hub operations. You can still be a project partner or team member for a Track 1 or a Track 2 grant. You just have to make sure that you're not duplicating costs, because let's say both applications were awarded, we can't be double dipping. So think of like, I don't know, paying yourself twice for the same amount of work. So those are just things you'd have to look at if you are both a lead applicant and a project team member for another application. Great question.
So if someone applies a Track 1 grant, there won't be an opportunity later to apply for a Track 2 grant because this offering won't be given again.
Yeah, at the moment, correct. There is not another funding cycle planned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Willow. Are there any other questions? We're almost at 5, but happy to answer any other questions, chat, or raise your hand. And if not, or if it hits you later as you're making dinner, just send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Roger?
Let me make sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. I know you were stating about the planning grant itself. How much is that the Track 1, or what's the time limit on that as well?
Yeah, so great question. Track 1, the funding can be anywhere between $50,000 and $250,000.
Okay.
And the grant term can be up to 24 months.
24 months.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I want to know. Okay. And you said you'll be sending that link to us, or how do we, for the RFA, how would we, because I have no idea how to do that part.
Oh yeah,
Would you-
here. Great question.
do I
In the
give you-
chat, I just dropped the link to our website, and Are you able to access the chat?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then let me share my screen. Show you where everything is located on the website.
Oh, okay, there it is.
You see it? Okay, cool.
Okay, I got it.
So, okay, cool. So this is our website. Scroll down a little, shows you how you can apply.
Okay, right there, request for, okay, the RFA. Right.
Yeah, that's that 30-page document.
Okay,
And if you want to apply for track 1 planning, you hit this drop down menu and it
Mhm.
has your materials here and it shows you 50 to 250,000. Grant term is 24 months.
Yeah.
This
Uh-oh, I messed up somewhere.
Okay.
Okay,
So yeah, track 1 application questions are there. The work plan template that you have to use is there. The project budget template you have to use is there. This letter of support template, you don't have to use this template, but if it helps you get started, we made that for you, but you can use your own version if you want. This application review criteria and scoring is a really detailed document that goes over how every single question will be scored by reviewers. So I think it's a lot to look at, but you know, it's something you can use as a resource. Once you draft your stuff, maybe ask a friend or a trusted partner to kind of grade your app based on this criteria and see where you might fall, where you could improve if needed. But you have to want to apply to track 2. You scroll down a little bit, hit this drop down menu, and all of those materials are there for that. And this quickly tells you you can request 350,000 up to $2 million for track 2, and the grant term is 60 months. Track 2 is different with the grant term. All track 2 projects will have to last 60 months because we need you to report for the full 5 years. All right. Yes, Alba. I will share my email again. Thank you for that. And I'm going to share my cell too. I find a quick 5-minute conversation is more manageable than 5 emails back and forth. All right. Well, not seeing any other questions, I'll close out tonight. Thank you all for being here and asking the really, really great questions. Come back for more if you have more questions. Send me an email. Here are the other dates and times for our application office hours. Go on the website to register, and hopefully I'll see you there. Thank you all.